Welcome, everyone, to our April office hours. We're going to wait a moment and let everybody finish coming into the room. If this is your first time at office hours, I'm Dr. Laura Markham, and I'd like to also introduce you to Candace Kilbieski, who will wave to you, who is the lead administrator of all of our Facebook groups, and also keeps the queue. If you're going to be asking a question today, you can raise your hand and Candace will sort you on the queue. We always give preference to people who haven't asked a question recently. And I'd also like you to say hi to Heidi Whipple, who is, you'll also recognize her name probably from the Facebook groups. If you are going to ask a question, and you know you are, good to get your hand up early, just so that we can make sure we get you in the queue. Okay, well, I am not going to let more time go by. More people are joining us, that's fine, but I want to go ahead and get started. It's April. How did that happen already? And it's our April office hours. And I am delighted to see you all here. If this is your first time joining us at office hours, welcome. And Candace, I know I have a couple of pre-submitted questions. Shall I start with somebody here in the room with us first, though?
Absolutely, I think so. Let's start with Barty.
Okay. Barty, if you could unmute yourself, please.
Hi, Laura. It's
Hi.
so lovely to meet you.
Nice to meet you. Glad you're here. What's your question?
So my question is, I have a nearly 12-year-old and she's just started what we call secondary school in England. It's sort of that big transition year from primary to secondary. And the norm in this country apparently is that when they get into this year, most people are traveling on their own by bus or train. So they're given a phone. We obviously haven't, because we drop her and pick her up. And we just want to keep the technology minimum as possible, as we know it's quite a lot of distraction. But obviously this has caused some issues, because obviously everyone else in the class has it. And even though they don't do any schoolwork using the phone, they're all given a laptop. I guess people are on WhatsApp and sort of connecting with each other, and they're going away on a school trip. It sort of upset her enough for her to ask us for a phone. We're not quite sure what to do, how to approach this. We've kind of tried the whole kind but firm approach, but we feel like it's sort of possibly impacting on her mental health in a sort of, not in a dangerous way, but we're sort of like, you know, what do we do? Just so tricky.
It is very tricky, especially because this age, kids, the way the brain is developing, young people are looking to other young people for connection. It's super important for their development. And so when she says everybody else has a phone, they're all WhatsApping each other, and I don't have a phone, she's expressing to you, it's a social need. It's not a technology need, it's a social need. And also you mentioned, you know, them going away on a class trip and her feeling that she would like a phone. I assume that's so that she could be in touch with you, but it is a situation where she's out of your sight. My rule of thumb on this is that kids don't need phones before this age, unless they're in a unique circumstance where they're out of sight of you or another trusted adult a lot. You know, if they're walking to school when they're 11 or 10, you might want to get them a phone, but otherwise I would certainly wait until now is the first time I would think of it. In the United States, it's very common for people to get 9 and 10-year-olds phones, which I think is unnecessary. But by the time they're 12, I hear a lot of parents asking the question you're asking. And so my question to you, Barty, is could you consider having a phone for her that she uses in a very limited way? And I know that that will require you to be constantly holding back the line, you know, that she's going to be like, well, can I use it now? Can I use it now? So you're going to have to actually think through what's going to work for you before you say a word to her, you and also her other parent. But then also you would really review it with her and then have her sign an agreement. The three of you would sign an agreement together, and you would review this agreement. You would review her phone usage and you'd review the agreement on basically a weekly basis, but you review the phone usage on a daily basis. And by that, I mean, maybe she only uses the phone. I mean, I assume she can't use it at school. They have to keep it put away at school and turned off. So right, and you're dropping her off at school, but maybe she's allowed to use it for an hour every, you know, when she's done with her homework, before dinner, in the evening. Maybe that's allowed, just to stay in touch with her cohort. And she's allowed to take it with her on her trip. But you would also have to disable certain things. You'd have to make sure that certain things are not available on the internet, that certain apps are not available. You'd have to make sure you were comfortable regulating the usage of the phone for this to feel like a good choice. And you're right, it is distracting. It's a distracting thing. But as long as you provide the guardrails for it and you're willing to enforce those, then I think you can guide her to be able to use the phone in a positive way. You'll be very involved in her phone usage for the first year because you'll be looking at it with her daily for at least the first 3 months. Oh, who texted who called who, what got said, how did you feel about this? How would you handle that? It's a lot. We're going to do a spotlight on screen usage, and we'll be talking more about cell phone use in June. So that'll be an opportunity to talk more about this. But I guess I would come down on the side of moving toward getting her a phone sooner rather than later, even though you would rather she never have one in her hand.
I know.
I don't think
I'd rather she never have one.
Yes, I hear you. I hear you. And not realistic. But helping, you know, we don't just give them a phone. We support them to learn how to use it in a healthy way, which is a lot of work on our parts, I admit, but they need that support.
Yeah, no, I understand. Yeah, no, that's super. No, thank you so much. That's, you know, I think it's given me that sort of clarity that I needed.
Right.
Yeah, I guess I needed support on that more than anything.
I hear you. And it's, I think with our oldest, it's especially hard, you know, because our fears come up in such a big way. So I think it's always useful for us as parents when we're about to let our child have a phone, walk to school alone, anything that's a big first. I think it's really useful for us to look at our fears around it, you know, sort of aside from the child, and just acknowledge and be compassionate to ourselves. It's normal to have those fears, and we can handle the situation. And if you don't feel you can handle it, get the resources to handle it, or don't loosen up that limit for your child until you are feeling comfortable with it. But I think working through our own fears is an important part of every phase of parenting.
Yeah, no, super. That's really helpful, actually. I kind of felt like I was a frog in a well, but I feel a little happier about moving forward with it. Yeah. Thank you very much.
You're very welcome. Okay, we probably have a queue, and
I haven't posted it yet. I would love Marianne to go next, and also invite Barty to look at our chat. We have some resources that Heidi posted.
Great.
Well, thank you very much.
Okay. Marianne?
Hi, Laura, Dr. Laura. I've done a lot of work and I've talked to you a few times about my son. He had a chip on his shoulder for a long time. I have a son and a daughter like less than 2 years apart. Everything with my son is going so well, and it's just been getting better and better. And my daughter now, who's always like my easy one, she's having a really hard time. And it's like, I don't know, I feel like everything I do is wrong. She's it's not directed towards her brother at all. I feel like it's just, I don't know, everything is hard. She's so unhappy. She cries a lot, which is good. And I like, try and support that when I feel like she needs to let that out. But I'm just like, whoa, she used to be so much more happy and easygoing, at least it seemed. And now that her brother is like in a good place, it seems like she's just falling apart. And it's been like months now.
So this is new behavior from her. She wasn't like this before.
Yeah, kindergarten, she was happy, loved school, loved everything. Just, I feel like always happy. And maybe I was wrong about that. Maybe I was so distracted, but first grade has just been like, not like that and hard. And she's always getting mad at me. Like she can't do a cartwheel. She wants to learn how to do a cartwheel. I try and teach her and she just is so mad at me through the whole thing.
So one thing I just have these various hypotheses going like, I wonder if this could be it or that could be it. We just have to get curious, like what's causing this behavior. Sometimes when we've had a focus on one kid as having, as being a challenge for us, and that begins to get resolved, and that kid is happier and taking less of our attention, and there's space, the other kid does begin to show you the things they've been saving up and not felt like there was space to show you. So sometimes that happens. And how great that you were able to do the hard work to bring your relationship with your son back into a good place. And also, I'm assuming his relationship with her back into a good place where he's become more forgiving of her. That healing the chip on the shoulder is hard work, and how terrific that you were able to do the work. It may have nothing to do with him though, right? It might be that something about first grade has been really hard. And I will also say that I have seen first graders over the years. I've many times seen 6-year-olds, first graders, who are struggling, really having a hard time. And they have a hard time with independence and dependence, right? Like, they're trying all these new things for the first time. They're going on play dates by themselves, and they're, learning to ride a bike, and they're, going on field trips at school. I mean, they probably went on field trips when they were younger, but, they're doing things that require more independence. They're learning new skills, reading, tying their shoes, although they probably have Velcro now mostly. But the point is that 6 is a time when we expect a lot of kids, and they're still pretty little. And sometimes it's too much for them. And we really see they come home, especially in the beginning of first grade. I've often seen 6-year-olds come home and just be in a really bad mood and fall asleep early and just, have a really hard time. But by the end of first grade, they've usually gotten that down. And also, she didn't just turn 6. She's more towards 7, probably.
Yeah, she'll be 7 in a few weeks, actually.
Exactly. So again, I'm thinking, well, that doesn't make sense as a hypothesis, because the brain rewiring that happens at age 6 would largely have happened by now. So I'm thinking that's probably not it either. So then I'm thinking, okay, if it's not her brother and leaving space for her, and it's not the brain rewiring and the whole 6-year struggle, then maybe there's something in her actual life that's an issue for her, right? Maybe how are the peer dynamics in first grade for her?
Mixed. I'm not sure. She's like very social and has a ton of friends or acquaintances, maybe. Yeah, I don't know. There's nothing like that.
She doesn't complain about something being a problem. She doesn't come home and storm around and say, so-and-so did this, or.
No, little things come out, like some little things someone may have said to her that bother her, but mostly there's not like one thing.
And there's not repeated things. It's not like every day there's a story about the social dynamics.
No.
So there's not sometimes there can develop a culture, including at this age. Usually it's more like second grade, third grade that it starts, but even at this age, the girl culture can become vicious, but it doesn't sound like that's it either. So we're going to dispense with that hypothesis. So now I'm wondering about learning issues. How's she doing? What does the teacher say about her learning? How does she feel about learning?
So she's great on that. That's like never been a problem. And the teacher loves her and she's ahead and everything.
Okay, so she's unlikely to be struggling with learning stuff. Sometimes that will happen even as early as first grade, although usually we don't see it till a little bit older because there's so many allowances made for a first grader. Okay, so that's not it either, probably. So now let's talk about her relationship with you. It may be that as you've gotten closer to your son again, that she has felt like her special position has been lost.
Yeah, I think that is like she's younger, she's so cute, she's always like everything was easy for her to do, and I feel like my son was the opposite always. And now, if he's in second grade, then I don't know. I feel like that could be it. Like she was like the cute little sweet one who never did anything wrong almost. And I hate even saying that, but that's not how I really felt. But I feel like we had kind of that dynamic in the house.
Okay. I'm going to go with that hypothesis for now, based on what you've told me. And the good news is we actually have solutions for that one that are not that they take some discipline on your part, but they're things you can do.
Okay.
So, and I think from your work with the online course and with the Success Path, what those things are. So it's all about connection. And so that's special time, right? The one-on-one time with her where you follow her lead. That's roughhousing to get her laughing because it reduces the anxiety and the tension, and it releases bonding hormones. So you're connecting, you're feeling connected. She's feeling connected to you. It's about empathizing no matter what's going on with her. Like you said, you can't do anything right. So when she says, no, that's not right to you, when you've done something for her, like cut her sandwich, your response needs to be, whoa, that's not the way you wanted it. Boy, it seems like I can't do anything right for you right now. Is that right? And she'll say, you never do anything. She'll open up the door and release a flood of, resentment toward you, which is really her way of saying, it's not her way of saying you're not good enough. It's her way of saying, I want to be connected to you and close to you. And I'm not feeling that connection. Please come back to me. That's what she's saying with her behavior. So if you can put aside any, notice, I'm not saying you don't allow the feelings, you notice you're hurt when she says you can't, you did that wrong again. Notice you're hurt, but don't take it personally. Say she's trying to communicate that she wants to be closer to me. And don't ignore it. Sometimes people think when my child is rude, if I just ignore that, that's better. I don't think we ever ignore because then it escalates, but I think we acknowledge in a way that we're not angry. We're accepting, we're hearing it as communication. So we acknowledge, wow, the way you said that to me, those words could hurt. Are you mad at me, sweetheart? Or are you just having a rough day? Right? So that we're acknowledging and we're giving her we're making it safe. We're giving her the opportunity to communicate more. We're making it safe for her to open up. And the more you, at the same time that you're offering that kind of empathy, the more you're also spending one-on-one time with her at other times, and you're getting her laughing at other times. And also that you find ways during your daily routine that you have built in times every single day that you connect with her, that she counts on, that every morning when you wake her up, or that hopefully she wakes up herself and maybe she comes to your room, or maybe, whatever, when you first encounter her, there's some snuggle time involved, right? That every day when she gets home, there's a little bit of one-on-one time or something. Just my point only being that there's times in your routines when she knows you're there to connect with her. And then finally, as you've already said, when you realize that she's pent up and needs to cry, making it safe for her to cry. Those are the 5 things I've just outlined that are the preventive maintenance things.
It's just one more thing. A lot of times I feel like with her, when I empathize, she screams at me, stop talking. Like if I'm like, oh, that must really be bad or whatever. Stop talking.
Well, very common for kids to do that. And the reason they do that is usually that it's just cuts too close to home. If she's told you something and you say, oh, that must feel so bad. She's like, yes, it does. And I don't want to feel this. And don't tell me that. Right. So it makes perfect sense. So at that point, you do stop talking. You say to her, you actually stop talking. And then you say, I'm right here with a hug when you're ready. You're maintaining connection, even though you're not commenting on her emotional state, right? And she might say, go away. And you can say, I hear you saying, go away. I'm going to go back to here, but I'm right here with a hug when you're ready. So you're not abandoning her, leaving her. You're available. You're visually available. You're not just going off and having fun, with your other child, right? But you're not in her face. So she has she's empowered to regulate her own emotional state by how close she gets to you.
Thank you. It's very helpful.
You're welcome. Okay. Next in the queue, Nicole. Sorry about that.
That's me.
Okay. Hi.
We've talked before a little bit about my son. He is he's kind of like a fearful kid, and he's had a lot of fears, and amazingly he does eventually rise to the occasion, and then he's happier afterwards.
Okay.
Which is great. Yeah. But this last one, I wasn't sure. I'm not really sure like what the fear is. So I thought I'd just throw it out to you.
Okay.
There's a new Mario movie. I don't know if you heard of it, Mario. And I was like, oh, let's go to the movies. Let's go see it. We've never gone to the movies. Before it used to be, he say it's too dark in there. But this last time, like a couple days ago, he goes, oh, I don't want to be with all those people. And I was like, okay. And I went with it, but I wasn't sure what to do with it. But then I got a note from school, there's a field trip, and they're going to see like a play. Yeah. So I was thinking to myself, I wonder, there's going to be like a similarity here, or he's just going to go with it, right? So then this morning he was all bent out of shape. I tried to do the empathizing, crying, tears, and all of a sudden he says, did you get the field trip thing? And I was like, yeah, I got it. He says, I don't want to go. I said, no. And I said, how come? And he said, I don't know how to put it. He said, but I sounded like me, I think. He's like, but I don't want to, something about the audience, so I helped him a little bit. I said, so you don't want to be in the audience? And he said, no. I said, oh. And I didn't say anything else because I didn't want to be like, no, okay, you can't go. Or, okay, you don't have to go. But I wasn't even sure what that's all about. So I said nothing really. I was just like, okay, and we had to get ready for school anyway. It wasn't like I just said, okay, let's go, but I just sat with it and he sat with it. And I don't know what he was thinking, but I was like, I don't get that. Like, maybe you could help me.
So Nicole, does he have any other anxiety challenges? You said,
oh yeah.
He has
like new
encountered
foods, or there's been a million along the way. Like he didn't want to put his head in the water, and then he put his head in the water.
There you go. So that's fabulous. So
yeah.
So that he struggles with a fearful reaction to things. Anxiety is just fear. And,
For sure.
And that's, sometimes we're just born that way, right? We inherited, somebody in the family passed it on to us and we inherited, and everyone falls somewhere on a continuum of, more anxious, less anxious, right? Where everybody, and sometimes it's specific to certain things like social, anxiety. And sometimes it's just generalized anxiety. But here's the thing about all anxiety.
Yeah.
It's the way the mind is trying to keep us safe, right? The mind looks at the situation and says, oh, could be dangerous. That water, put our head in the water, we could die, right? We go into that big movie theater, it's dark, or, we go to the play and we sit in the audience and there are all those other people surrounding us, right? So it's basically an alarm reaction to an idea of what might happen in the future, right? It's not actually a real thing that will happen. He's going to be fine in that play. He would be fine if he went to the movies. He was fine when he put his head in the water, right? None of those things turned out to be an emergency, but he had the fear that these things would, right? That's the false evidence appearing real is what fear is, right? Okay. So it turns out that educating kids about this really helps them. Teaching them how fear works actually really helps them. And that it's natural to have fears, that the human race is still here because people are scared of things like getting too close to the edge of a really big drop, or playing with snakes that, are poisonous, whatever. So it's good that we have these fears, but sometimes our mind is overreactive in an attempt to keep us safe. So you are about to become an expert on working with kids who have fears.
Yeah.
So you'll be starting to educate him about this. And there are books. Remind me, you said he's how old?
He's 7.
Right. Okay. So there are books that we can track down on the website.
Okay.
I know that probably on the anxiety page, there's some books, and we can put them in the chat here. But you can start to read those books with him and discuss with him. And you're not lecturing him. You're opening the door so he can share his fears. And you're acknowledging, you're not demeaning him for those fears. You're acknowledging, well, isn't it great that you have such a, that your mind is so protective of you that it always wants to keep you safe. It's great. And it's natural to feel fears when you do something for the first time, like go to a play or a movie or put your head underwater. In fact, remember when you put your head underwater, you really didn't want to do it, did you? Remember before you put your head underwater, what did it feel like to you? And he'll describe how scared he was. And you say, yeah. And you were so brave and you did it, right? Did you do it a little at a time or all at once? I'm trying to remember. And he'll tell you what he did. And you'll say, I'm so impressed that you did that. And what did you learn from it? And do you think he'll say, I learned that I can sometimes do brave things?
Yeah.
Good.
I think he'll say something like that. Yeah.
Great. And you say, I am so proud of you. And you must be so proud of yourself that
Yeah.
you were able to be that brave. And I know that going to the play will take a similar kind of courage. It will. It will take a similar kind of courage. Some of the kids probably haven't even thought about it and they're not worried about it, but you've got, and you can now develop this whole idea. You've got a worry monster in that is really making sure that you're noticing everything that might be worrisome. And what should we call that worry monster? And he might have a name for it. And you can say, yeah, we'll call that worry monster, whatever it is. And you can say, and you are in charge of the worry monster. It alerts you to things, but you decide if it's really something to be worried about. Because the worry monster is not in charge. It would have kept you from putting your head in the water. But you
Oh, that's a good one. Yeah.
Right? It would have kept you from doing that forever. You would have gone your whole life and never put your head in the water. But you decided you were in charge and you were really brave and you did it. You can tell
It's funny because I tried to get him to put his head in the water for felt like ever. And I sent him to camp. And then after, we could camp, we went swimming and he was going underwater. And I was like, wait, I was like, what happened? And he's like, oh yeah, I jumped in the pool at camp. And I was like, and I couldn't help myself. But I was like, what made you put your head in the water? He said, I had no choice.
I had no choice.
And the weird thing is he had a choice.
He did, but he felt he had no choice. And so I would ask, why did you have no choice? And he'll probably say, well, the counselor said I had to. I mean, I don't know what else no choice.
Well, it was like a line and they were all jumping in.
Right. Everyone was in it. So I would rather jump in the water and maybe die with my head under the water versus have people laugh at me for getting out of line. Right. I mean, we don't know.
Maybe. I don't know.
Yeah.
I was so surprised. I was just like,
we want to know about that. But I think you also want to do, interviewing, motivational interviewing, where you ask them, so what have been the bad things and the good things about putting your head underwater?
yeah,
What have been the good things? And he'll say, oh, well, I get to play with the other kids. I'm a much better swimmer. Blah, I'm really proud of myself, whatever he says.
yeah.
No, I'm brave now. And you say, and were there any bad things? And he'll be like, well, sometimes I get water on my nose. He's like, well, you can live with that, right? So never. So then you say, well, you can tell your mind that you don't have a choice about this either, because your teacher in class expects you to go with them, but you're allowed to be scared. but you can handle being scared. You can do hard things. So how could you support yourself if you're scared on the way to the theater? And if you get scared in the theater, and think about what's going to happen, how great you're going to feel afterwards, just like how great you felt after you put your head in the water swimming.
Okay, I'm gonna try that. Thank you.
Okay.
You
good
know, it's
luck.
so funny because I don't see the world that way at all. You know what I mean? So it's like a complete opposite of me. You know what I mean? So it takes a while. It's been taking me a while to like catch up to seeing the world that way. You know what I mean?
I do, because every human is different. And sometimes we're given the privilege of raising children who are different than we are in so many ways, right?
Yeah, it's a
And
growth
it-
opportunity for sure.
Yes, yes, it expands our own heart and our ability to see other people's perspective. Yeah. And to provide support to someone who's different than we are. But what a great gift that is to us.
It is. Thank you. That helps a lot. Thank you very much.
Welcome. So next up is Ilana.
Okay,
Hi, Ilana.
unmuted. Okay. Hi, Dr.
Hi.
So I always feel like I have so many things to work on, and I've got my 6-year-old twins, and that I thought I'd just zero in on one specific thing with
Okay.
my daughter, especially, and relates in part to setting limits and boundaries, and it's also about what I feel like it's like about our this repair I want to do with her. And because so the issue is that the physical contact and the her tendency to pretend that she's still breastfeeding. And I've handled it different ways, but I just feel like I don't think I'm getting to the right place with her. So, and also, practically speaking, I can't have her be doing this in public. Like she'll run up to me after I pick her up from school. First there's a hug, and then sometimes she jumps up to my breast, and I say, Orly, not in public, please. But at home, even like I'm trying to set limits. So part of it is like, I haven't set limits with her very well in general. And I feel like I also have not handled the need for that closeness in a gentle. Sometimes it's just been overwhelming, and so I react. And so when I was doing maybe a better, more empathic approach, I would say, oh, I know how much you miss that, and you miss the mama milk, and and she would say how she wants to be a baby again. And that's a big theme for her. She wants to be a baby. She even asked me one day, could I just pee on the floor like I was a baby? And I was like, oh, you just miss. I was just trying to like be with her in it. But especially with the body and the breastfeeding, it feels compulsive, and like it's just a need that I can't meet. And so I just I don't know, I'm struggling with it, because even though there was one moment a while back where I said, oh, I miss that too. I miss that closeness, and you miss it. And she cried, but it didn't quite do it. And then now when I empathize, it's like she doesn't go there very readily. So she just will keep doing it, or she'll get silly. And then I get frustrated because she's not hearing me, and she keeps, like she'll get more like physical, like she'll bump up against me, or and the thing about her doing in public is that's when I get more frustrated, because she'll do it repeatedly. So I'm trying to balance the limit setting with some sort of like repair about the loss of this connection, because I really do think, given how I was in the first few years, like and it's hard for me to even come to terms with it, like just not empathetic enough, often irritable, a lot of things that were hard for her. I said things that were hurtful, And I know it's going to take a while to do this repair, but so that's the gist of it, is like, I also, yeah, we got to set limits somehow. So anyway,
Yes, you can't have her jumping up on you and pretending she's nursing when you pick her up at school.
yeah.
Yeah, it's just too embarrassing. I got it. And the limit we're setting is not about her need to be babied.
Yeah.
It's about when that need is met. And the nursing is one expression of that. But as you know, the peeing on the floor, the general need to be babied is the need that wasn't met. And she was a twin.
Yeah.
Twins are super hard, right? And when
Yeah.
you have two babies whose needs you have to meet, and you know, it's just no one is prepared for that. It's superhuman to meet the needs of two babies at once, right?
Yeah, it's all
So,
right.
right. And she felt her needs were not met. And it sounds like when she expressed that in various ways, it was hard for you to empathize because you were overwhelmed and probably defensive because it's hard, right?
Mhm.
So you're saying that the way you handled it in the first few years, it sort of shut those needs down or rejected her because of them. So now they're still there.
Yeah.
They don't just go away. Human needs don't go away. If they're not, they're either met or they're stuffed in the backpack, right?
Mhm.
In which case they're unconscious. We cut them off. Now hers are not very unconscious. She's still acting them out, which is great because it gives you a chance to maybe heal them. So my prescription to you would be to really work hard to meet the needs, and we can talk about what that would look like,
Okay.
and to set to put them in a box. You're going to set limits around it. It's not going to be that she just, you know, is constantly jumping on you and fondling your breasts. That's not going to happen.
Right.
She's allowed to play baby, and you're
Mhm.
going to call it playing baby, and you're going to say, you know, do you want to play baby? And you're going to do it in the context of special time.
Okay.
You're going to have special time with her every single day, even if it's only for 10 minutes. Every single day, you're going to find 10 minutes where, and you can have 10 minutes with him also, right? You can find a way to keep the other one busy for a very short time.
Yeah.
And so you're going to say, do you want to play baby? Now, we follow their lead usually and let them suggest it, but I'm sure after you suggest this once or twice, she's going to be saying, when can we play baby?
Mhm.
And playing baby is pouring your love into her. It's pulling her onto your lap and, oh, my little baby, and you're rocking her and you're stroking her cheek and you're kissing her all over and you're playing This Little Piggy Went to Market and all of that stuff. And probably she's going to ask to nurse.
Yeah.
Now, and everything is pretend, remember. You're not pulling up your shirt and whipping out your boob. You're just saying, right? You don't need to do that. You're saying, if she says, can I nurse, or whatever the word she uses for it, you can say, of course, we're pretending you're a baby. You can pretend to do anything, right? And when she says, can I pee on the floor? You say, you can pretend to pee on the floor. You can't really pee on the floor, but you could pretend like a baby might. Usually they pee in a diaper. We'll pretend you have a diaper on, right? Whatever.
Okay.
So you're pretending, right? And
Mhm.
if she says, but can I actually touch your breast? That's the hard part. And some people would say yes, and some would say no. And my daughter was doing this at an earlier age, like 4. And I said, yes, you can touch my breast, but you always have to ask.
Uh-huh.
It's a special thing. It's not like you can do it all the time.
Yeah.
And I, after I weaned her, I had to wear turtlenecks, you know, like I had to like keep from, you know, if I leaned over and she saw a glimpse, you know, it was like
Right.
all over, right? So eat for years after that, I always made sure that when I was around her, that I was careful what I was wearing. And you might have to do that with your daughter for a while until this need is met and you sort of move beyond this habit. But we're also going to try, in addition to meeting the need to be babied, we're going to try to strengthen your connection with her, sweeten your connection with her, so that she's not looking to go back to that golden time only, that she's feeling like she's close to you now. And she's not constantly trying to pry your love out of you, because that's how she felt in the past, right?
Yeah.
Right. So you're heaping your love onto her. You're adoring her as much as you can. And you know the 5 preventive maintenance things, right? But
Yeah.
one of them is finding a time for connection in your routine constantly, right?
Mhm.
And another is special time. This we've just talked about what the special time would look like. And the third thing I want to mention is roughhousing, because that you said that when she asked and you said to her, oh, I miss those times too. And she sort of got teary
Mhm.
because you were resonating, the two of you, in the loss you had shared. It's a loss that we share with them, right?
Yeah.
And that then now, since that's come up, when you've tried to go there, she won't go there because it's just too much for her.
Oh, okay.
What you can do is you can laugh about it. You said sometimes she'll get silly if you try to do that. You can still try to do it, but let's say she gets silly. You can say, I see you don't want me to talk about how sad that is. I'm going to throw you around or whatever. Get silly with her. And anything she laughs about at that point is okay. It reduces the tension and the anxiety and the shame, because all of us, when we need something and we're not given it as children, we feel some shame about that need, like maybe we didn't deserve it and we're not good enough and that's why we didn't get it. So she needs your adoration and your empathy, like at every turn. And I know I'm prescribing you to be superhuman, and you don't have to be perfect, but the more you can do the things I'm describing,
Yeah.
the more you will be doing the healing that you're talking about. And separately from all this, you have a discussion with her at some point, when you're snuggling up at night to go to bed, where you say, I loved special time with you today. I love it when we play baby.
Mhm.
And you can say, and it's okay. You can always ask to nurse or to touch my breast or whatever she's going to ask you during. And by the way, you don't have to let her actually touch your breast. You could just be pretending, right? But you can say, I love it when we play baby like that. But that's private between you and me. We don't play baby with other people around. It's just for us. Because
Wow.
babies, when they're with their moms, that's a special thing for the two of them. Right.
Okay.
And when you do pick her up and she goes to grab you, you say,
Mhm.
whoa, I think you're happy to see me. Here, give me a hug like a 6-year-old. Like
Okay.
a
That's a
big
nice way to
6-year-old
put
who
it.
just spent all day in school and wants to go home and be a baby. We'll go home and be a baby. Don't worry.
Mhm. That's a much more loving way to put it, because I think when I've either I'll say it, I'd love to snuggle and, I have a hug, but not, don't, don't touch me there out in public, or even if we're at home, I'll say, why don't you snuggle and you could be right here? And then she sort of sneaks up and in. And then I say, really, it's just too sensitive there. And I try to explain it, but I feel like I'm not reaching her. And then she tries to be more sneaky.
She's not able to see your perspective in this.
Yeah.
She has to fight to get her needs met.
Right.
She is fighting to get her needs met.
Yeah.
And so it's perfectly fine to, when you pick her up at school, say, you missed me.
Mhm.
Like you want to go home and play baby, and that's fine. Right now, give me a hug like a big 6-year-old.
Mhm. And I love that idea of just having that structure about playing baby, because I think she's felt like, I think it's, I think she's been worried about whether she can approach me, whether I want that.
Yeah.
And then so sometimes she'll push me away. I'll say, oh, do you want to play? And no, she's not interested. No. And I think maybe it's because, she sees me playing easily with her brother, and now she's, so it's like, I guess what you're saying, I need to make it so clear that we have a thing and we're going to do it.
Yeah.
And, I'm going to not forget about it, or it's not going to be like when it's convenient. It's
right. That you're going to do it every day. And I
every
want to
day.
add one more suggestion for a game based on what you just said about her pushing you away.
Yeah.
She has such anguish about her need for you and whether it's reciprocated.
Right.
That's part of what needs to get healed here. So I'm going to suggest that you play a game that I often recommend for separation anxiety, which is that don't let her go. Like, if you're reading a book with her or snuggling with her or something, and she's ready to, get down and you're both getting ready to go, fix dinner or whatever you're going to, stop and grab her back and say, oh no, I'm not ready to let go of you. I can't ever let go of you. And you be the one to need her. Let her be the one to say, mommy, you're being silly.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
That's great. I love that. She'll love that. I could imagine.
Anytime I'm laughing.
I said to her about when you've said about, when you grow up, I hope that you'll come and she's totally resonated with that. She says, mommy, I'm going to have a house right beside yours. And So that kind of resonates, I think, with that idea that
Yeah.
I want her there. And
Good.
okay,
All right. Good
thanks
luck.
so much. That's really
Oh.
great. Thanks.
Okay. And our next person is Disha. Hi, Disha.
Hello, Dr. Laura. So lovely to see you. So wonderful to be in your presence. So my question today is about, I think, sleep/stress issues with my just turned 11-year-old. And when I try to take her to bed around 7 p.m., she doesn't fall asleep until 9 o'clock. And then in the next morning, one, she doesn't wake up on her own. We have to wake her up. And secondly, oftentimes she is groggy. I suspect I am observing some stress behavior, and I see that she needs time to wind down. She is a sensitive child. She needs her quiet time, but she gives me a lot of pushback. For example, when I try taking her to bed at 8:30 on weekends, and then on weekdays, I have tried to limit her after school activities so that we have time for special time and roughhousing, and sometimes things still get in the way, like there will be something through school and all, but in general, like I experience a lot of resistance from her about going to bed on time. So I'm just not sure if I'm missing a need of hers, or how do I basically support her, because I see that she's so much better once she has rested, but she does not want to rest.
So this is probably a perfect storm of things coming in to create the situation. We do know that when kids hit the teen years, and hormonally, an 11-year-old is almost a 12-year-old, hormonally, things are already starting to happen with an 11-year-old. And we know that when they get to the teen years, their body clock is a little different. Now, it's true that much of that research has not taken into account that kids are using screens. So when we take the screens away, kids are actually, it's not such a pronounced difference, but there's still a difference. There's still a difference from when they were little, when they got up early, right? And there's still a difference actually from adults who are chronically tired. So we know that their body clock begins to reset itself so that they have a hard time falling asleep, and they need to therefore sleep a little bit more in the morning because they have a harder time falling asleep earlier. It's just the way that their bodies and brains work. That does happen. But that said, there are things you can do with that. You can take away all screens in the last hour and a half before bedtime. You can make sure that they get to laugh every single afternoon, that they get that laughter in, because that reduces some of the stress hormones in the body, and the stress hormones in the body are part of what keep them awake, as you said, and we can teach them good sleep hygiene, some good habits for sleep. And we can teach them methods for going, strategies for how you go to sleep, give them a sleep mask, let them listen to a sleep audio, make sure that they have the guided meditation of like letting their body sink into the mattress. And when their mind starts to tell them something about school today or friends, or they have to remember blah, blah, to just say, we're not thinking now, we're sinking into the mattress, So giving them strategies like that just to teach them basic sleep habits, right? So that they, which most of us never get taught. And so we think we're just supposed to be able to go to sleep. And many of us, that doesn't work so well, right? We struggle with it.
Yeah.
So all of that will help. But you also said she resists going to sleep, which is, and what does she do if she didn't go to sleep, what would she be doing?
So she does not like to do her homework as soon as she comes back from school. So usually she's wrapping up her studying, or she would be working on some project that has cropped up in her mind. So it's almost like she goes in that quiet zone, like she's looking inwards and she's following her own lead. Yeah.
So it sounds like she has an agenda of her own, and she feels that her agency is being taken away when she's suddenly told to go to bed. 7 does seem early for me for an 11-year-old. 9 seems late. So somewhere in between. But I
Okay.
wonder if you want to have a conversation with her and say, when is her 12th birthday?
Actually, April 26th is when she just turned 11. She just turned 11.
You just turned 11. Okay. So you could have a conversation and say, now that you've turned 11, we think that you're ready for a little more responsibility. So we think you're ready to take on a new responsibility around the house. And we think you're ready for the privilege of staying up a little bit later.
Hmm.
And then we need to have an agreement that you really will keep to this and work to get yourself into bed at that time. And I understand it's hard to get in bed and not fall asleep. So we're going to work on ways to help you fall asleep. So I would, and I think you have to make clear what happens on weekends. You don't want the weekend bedtime to be much different. You don't want it to be a lot later because the research shows that that doesn't work for anybody, that an hour later is okay, but no more than that.
Okay. Sounds good. Yes. Okay. I'll report back on how things are going.
Great.
I
Good
do
luck.
think that the conversation will help. Thank you so much.
Good luck. Okay. So our next cue, help me out here, Candace. What are we doing?
Kate.
Okay. Hi, Kate. Can you unmute yourself?
Hello, can you hear me, Dr. Laura?
I can hear you fine. Hi.
Hi, nice to meet you virtually. I have a 7-year-old son and I have an 11-year-old daughter also. My 11-year-old daughter has always been my easy to parent child, and then my 7-year-old son came along and was more challenging for me as a parent. From being, I don't know, from the age he could walk, really, he was just very, I suppose he just triggered a lot of my fears. He was a child that just liked to run away. He had no sense of proximity or fear. And so as a result, I think that's come across in my parenting with him. I think he's felt that I find him challenging, even if I don't necessarily say it. I just think the nuances of how we parent differently between our children and, the small things we say. I feel that with my son, I have more of a disconnect than I had with my daughter. We're very connected and close, and I'm not so much with my son. So I've really tried to sort of look at that and work on that and be more conscious about connecting with him and just sort of interacting with him differently in ways that he responds to. So he's very sporty, very physical, less about talking and all of that. But he has big problems with emotional regulation, and he's just turned 8, and he's very impulsive and not very good at accepting boundaries. And if I say, no, we can't do that right now, or he doesn't respond very well to that. So for example, if we had friends over last night and I was cooking dinner for everybody and he goes to the fridge and tries to get some chocolate, and I said, look, darling, you can have that after dinner, we've got plenty for everybody, but the dinner's almost ready, please just wait 5 minutes. Do you want to help me set the table, or do you want to go and tell the girls to come in? And you can't distract him. He's going to get that chocolate. If I say no, he goes and gets the stool and he's trying to pull himself up into the fridge. So I'm struggling a bit with this behavior, sort of setting a boundary and then enforcing it in such a way that I don't end up getting angry, because it gets to the stage with him where it doesn't seem to matter what I say, how I distract him or try and lead him in a different direction. He's just sort of has tunnel vision in that moment, that's all he can see. And he can't almost rest until he's got that thing that he wanted, whatever that may be, maybe the chocolate egg out of the fridge or something else. So there's that part to this. The second part to it is that when we are out in public, which is the biggest trigger for me, because I get quite embarrassed in front of other people when he's acting this way, is when he displays this behavior. When we're at school, for example, I'll go and pick him up from school and he's tired, but he doesn't come to me and want a hug. He doesn't come to me and want to connect. I have to find him at school. And if I want to lead him away from his friends while he's sharing football cards, or say, come on, let's go and get in the car, I've got a snack for you. He can get quite angry and he'll say, no, I'm not coming now. And he'll shove me. which I'm finding really difficult to manage. I'm trying to look at what he's trying to communicate with me, the underlying need. But I'm struggling because I'm present. I connect with him every day. I'd say I'm quite good at setting boundaries. I'm quite clear with our boundaries. But I don't know how to deal with that behavior, this sort of resistance. How do I deal with it in that moment when for him it's a firm no, and it can get quite angry and it can get quite physical, particularly when I'm in a public place. That's my scenario.
Is his behavior different when you're in public? Or is it only your reaction that's different when you're in public?
So is his behavior different?
Well, you said particularly when we're in a public place. Did you mean particularly it's hard for you, which is totally understandable? Or did you mean particularly he will act differently?
No, he can act exactly the same way when people are not there. So he has no sort of censorship around that. Like, he doesn't seem to care.
Yeah.
If he's tired, hungry, needs a toilet, or just generally overwhelmed by a situation, this behavior is quite common. So I know it's something related to that. But I find it easier to deal with in the house when nobody's around, because I can obviously set boundary and be calm and not react. And I don't react also when we're in public, but I'm really finding it where it's wearing me down in the public sense, because I feel a little bit impotent in that moment. I don't know how to deal with it. I don't know how to move him through that moment and to where we need to go to, and that's what I'm finding really difficult.
Well, anyone would be having a hard time and feel a little impotent at that moment, right? Yeah. Like, how am I possibly, my kid just shoved me, right, in front of everybody and said no. And anyone would be having a hard time with that. So you said you're actually quite good at setting boundaries. And then you said that a few minutes ago, and then just now you said, I set boundaries, I'm able to stay quite calm, at least. And you're able to stay calm, even though it takes extra work in public, but you're able to stay calm at your house. When you set those boundaries, how much are you able to actually empathize with him?
Traditionally, I haven't always been very good, but I would say over the last 6 months, I have started to follow your books and your emails. I read those, and I've also started to do a parenting course. So I'd say, over the last 6 months, I've actually really improved with that. So I will say when I say I'm good at setting boundaries, then I'm good at staying calm. To a point, I do also overreact, and I do sometimes get angry. But I did a sense check with my husband the other night, and he said, but considering how much he pushes, realistically speaking, you do very well to stay calm for as long as you do. So it's almost understandable that sometimes, you get cross and say, right, that's enough now, but he seems to just push and push and push and push until he gets a reaction. And that's what I find difficult with him. But I always say to him, I understand, Ollie, because I would have wanted the chocolate. I would want the chocolate now. I love chocolate, so I sort of let him know that he's no different to me. He's no different to anybody else. There's nothing wrong. It's just we can't have chocolate before dinner.
So I think what you're describing is a kid who was born strong-willed, right? The whole idea of kids who are like, they want what they want and they're going to move heaven and earth to get it, right?
Yeah.
And the only way to work with those kids is relationship. The only reason that they're going to give up what they want is that there's something they want more than the chocolate, more than to show their friends the cards they're showing them. There's something they want, and it's that warm relationship with you. But because he was a challenging kid, from the time he was born, you had a harder time adoring him because he was difficult. He was difficult. And this happens sometimes when kids are challenging or they're not quite the right match for the parent. It happens. And so we see the result is that the child doesn't they don't modify what they want when the parent gives them direction. They're like, I don't care what you want. I'm getting what I want. I want that chocolate. Or no, I'm going to shove you because you're in my way here and you're getting, you're saying to do something I'm not about to do.
Yeah.
And the healing for that, the solution for that is
Yeah.
healing that relationship.
Yeah.
So what happened is that about 6 months ago, you did
Mm.
begin to change what you were doing. I
Yeah.
mean, it was always challenging, right? And
Yes.
you always realized that, and you always realized you weren't as close to him as you were to your daughter. And
Yeah.
you always realized he knew that you weren't as close. You always realized you knew, you
Yeah.
saw that he saw that you had a better relationship with your daughter and that he was difficult for you. He saw that.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
the way, what was his takeaway, do you think, at that time?
I think it's affected his self-esteem.
Yes.
Bec-
I think he feels like I'm not good enough to cause my mother to adore me.
Yeah. And we've had conversations. So like sometimes on an evening when just before he's going to bed, I'll say to him, you're enough, Ollie. You are enough as you are. You are funny, you are smart, you are kind, you are thoughtful, and I go through these things and I tell him how much I love him, and I'm quite able to articulate that, and he does listen. And often after these outbursts, he will sit in the car quietly and say, "I'm really sorry, Mummy." So he does know.
Excellent. That's
Yeah,
great. That's
he
great. So
knows.
it's already changing. You're
Yeah.
having begun to parent differently. You're already seeing change. So here's the
Yeah.
next step.
Yes.
What you've done, Kate, is beautiful, where you tell him all the wonderful things about him and where you tell him how much you love him.
Yeah.
He needs to share with you the pain that he has felt from
Yeah.
feeling he wasn't.
Yeah.
So we need to find a way to empathize with that pain and open the door for him to feel understood there, because
Yes.
that's where the you're already reconnecting, but that's where the connection between you will heal. So
Yeah. Okay.
and this isn't one conversation, it's probably ongoing conversations, but
Yeah.
you could start it. As you say, sometimes in an evening, you'll have these conversations. So here's another place to go in that conversation.
Yeah. Okay.
You can
Yeah.
say, Ollie, when you were little, I didn't know how to be the mommy you needed me to be. I
Yeah.
always loved you. I always thought you were wonderful, but sometimes I didn't know how to be the mommy you wanted. And I think
Yeah.
I yelled at you a lot. I think I raised my voice. I think I made you feel like I was mad at you a lot.
Yeah.
You remember me doing that? Now, he won't remember when he's 2, but he will remember when he was 4 probably, or,
Yeah. Yeah. Well, even
he's
more.
just turned 8. He'll remember recently.
Yes, I mean, sometimes I do get cross and I do get angry and I raise my voice, and he then will check in after and say, "You angry with me still?" And I'll say, "Look, I'm really sorry that I raised my voice, and we've talked about how we're both going to try harder not to raise our voices." But it's just the physical elements.
Kate,
Yeah.
I'm going to get to the physical element in a minute.
Mm.
He should not be shoving you.
No.
And the healing, and it sounds like you're doing really beautifully with him, that he's willing to come to you and say, "Are you still mad at me?" Or he's willing to say afterwards, "I'm sorry about that I
Yeah.
shoved you."
Yes.
I'm saying, if you want him to stop shoving you, there
Yeah.
needs to be some healing here that you
Yeah.
have to initiate. Do you feel like you can have that conversation with him?
Yeah, I think I can. I mean, I have said to him, "I'm really sorry, Ollie, for all the times when I haven't been the mummy that you deserved because I didn't know how to be better." And I
Beautiful.
said, "Yeah." And I said, "I'm really trying hard to learn how to be better." And yeah, he gets that. We've talked a bit about my my childhood, and how you tend to do what your parents do, and then you have to teach yourself a different way. So sometimes you get it wrong. So I think he understands. He understands all of
Yeah.
that.
How did he, when you, it's, understanding is great. The intellectual conversation is great. What
Yeah.
happens inside his emotions and his heart when you bring this up and say, "I wasn't the mommy you deserved. I'm sorry"? How does he respond?
He goes quite a bit quiet and a bit introvert at that point. And
Beautiful.
he will say things later, like if I say I'm sorry, if I say maybe I got it wrong, or I didn't do as well, he said, "You're the best mummy that I could wish for." So he will say, a little, he'll process it, and then he'll come back and say something.
Great.
But
But I'm going
yeah.
to stop you there, and I'm going to go back at that moment. when you're saying this, you're probably going to get tears in your eyes
Yeah.
as you're feeling the pain so deeply of what was wrong between the two of you.
Yeah.
And if you feel it that deeply, he's
Yeah.
going to, and he'll get quiet. And you
Yeah.
can, do you remember any of those times? And he
Yeah.
might say, no, you're the best mom, which would mean that it's too painful still to go there with you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? Yeah. Well, just last week, he might say, and you could say, yeah, I'm still working on it. Or he might say, there was that time when I was 5, and tell you something that he found to be a devastating experience. And if he's able to come up with anything that is his, these things go on for years, and something will just take on the symbolism of it. So whatever he comes up with is the symbol of this. And you listen and you say, oh, that must have hurt so much. What you're doing is empathizing with the pain. It's not just about your apology, which he sounds like you're great with. It's about giving him a safe place to share the pain with you.
Yes. Yeah. I know that. Yeah.
Right
But
now,
do
that's in the way of your relationship. Hang on a second, Kate.
Yeah,
right
sorry.
now, that's getting in the way of your relationship.
Okay.
You take that pain, and it's the spinning dross into gold thing. You can take that pain and you can transform it into a bond between the two of you, where he feels like he showed you his heart, and you held the space for him to have that need and that pain, and you help dissolve it.
Okay. Yeah.
That's what's going to make the difference. In the moment when you're on the playground and he shoves you, there's a lot you can do. You're already in the breakdown lane. I mean, I can tell you what to do, but when you say it's hard to set the limit in front of everybody, what you're doing now, trying to stay calm and say, excuse me, no shoving, Molly. Come, let's go. Right? That's you're setting a limit. You're saying this is not acceptable behavior. And you can also acknowledge that he's having a hard time. So you can say, excuse me, did you just shove me? No, notice I'm not wounded by that. He doesn't have that power over me. Right.
Yes.
But I'm acknowledging he just shoved me and saying, excuse me, did you just shove me? Not okay. You must be a little, whatever, hungry, tired, cranky. You can do that. But it could just be, you must be having a hard time, because then you're not analyzing him, right? You must be having a hard time. Come on, we got to go. And you take it. And if you do that consistently, you're not letting it rattle you. You're not rattled at all. You're setting the limit. If you do that and you're doing the healing, the behavior will vanish.
Okay. That's what I wanted to ask you though. So do you think the damage that I have done in previous years is resolvable?
Absolutely. Completely resolvable, completely. I think that your son has learned that he might not be worthy enough to inspire the love of those he loves. And you're going to teach him that that's a false belief. You're going to demonstrate to him by how you show up for the rest of his life.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. Thank you. I really appreciate the advice. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Okay. And I see an outpouring of love, Kate, for you on the chat, which is wonderful to see. This is very hard work. You're not the only person who has been in a position where they feel like they have failed their kids. There's no failure. There's only noticing now and stepping up to make the repair. And that's to me, that's what we're here for, because that's creating love out of what wasn't love. And it's transformative in your relationship with your son, and it's transformative inside our own hearts as well. So we get transformed in the process. And thank you, everybody, for the support you give each other on the chat. Okay, our next person, it looks like, is Katie. Hi, Katie. Can you unmute yourself?
Hi. Really incredible to be here with you. Guys, bear with me. I might cry. I'm like a really anxious person.
I just
I know. How am I going to follow that? So I just, like I said, I have some anxiety, so I'm kind of just gonna read.
Okay.
So a background, I read your book. It's incredible. I just got done with your class. I'm about to work on your workbook. I am a single mom. I fled with my then 3.5-month-old little girl from domestic abuse. We just got on our feet.
Wow. Can I just say, I feel like we should all be giving you a round of applause just because of the strength you've just demonstrated. I know everyone who asks a question is demonstrating incredible strength, but that what you just said is like, okay, we're all here cheering you on. Go ahead.
Thank you. I'm in school full time, and so there's like a lot of disruption to her routine, and between like his supervised visitation and daycare and things like that, she's kind of yeah, she's, first of all, she's like the most incredible little girl. She's a very strong-willed little 22-month-old now, and it's hard for me to like set limits and boundaries with her, where she's really reserved at daycare. When she goes for the supervised visitations, from what I understand, she basically just cries the whole time, and just doesn't want to be there. And I'm wondering like how much of what happened to her prior to my leaving, and then during this visitation that he had when he was using, how much of that affected her, and that she carries that with her every time she goes and has to see him. So anyway, I have a hard time like setting limits with like screen time, and like she wants to nurse like immediately as soon as she sees me after visitation or daycare, and she's like really insistent about it, like will grab my shirt and just be wild. Or like getting into the car seat has become kind of an issue, but it seems to be this like back and forth, and it has started to calm down since I've taken the class and been like cognizant of it, and really trying to reel myself in, because I know that like 90% of the parenting is reeling ourselves in. It really has very little to do with what's going on. Like it's more us that we need to fix than anything. So I guess, I don't know if there's even a question in all this besides like, do you believe how much of this is like, it's hard to set limits and boundaries without her being able to say much. She just, like I said, at daycare, she doesn't say anything unless everybody's asleep. She says about 30 words with me, but most of it's like uh-ohs and oh no's and no's. And but like, so how do you set limits and boundaries with a child who like, she understands so much, but she doesn't say much?
Yeah.
And then, so I guess the second part of my question is like, how do you co-parent with somebody like that and continue your limits and boundaries and try to peaceful parent? And what do you do in this situation?
So those are two really separate questions.
Very
but I would
loaded.
say your 22-month-old sounds like a 22-month-old, right? So you set limits with her, first of all, by having routines that are always the things she can count on. And then those things aren't even things you have to set limits about. I mean, they are, you're enforcing that this is our routine, but that's what she expects every day. She's less likely to be challenging that, right? And the more warning she has about anything, the better, even though her prefrontal cortex doesn't have the planning function installed yet, right? It's not built. But that's how it gets built, is that you say, we're going to do this. And then after dinner, we're going to have our bath. And she's like, yeah, we'll see about that. I'm busy doing whatever, eating my potatoes. And then afterwards you have the bath, and she's like, oh, that's how this works. So you're constructing her brain through every interaction you have with her, where you say, this is our routine. This is what we do. No, we're not going to go outside right now. I need to go outside. She's going to challenge every limit. And your job is to stay in a good mood while you say, I know you wish you could go outside right now. Not right now. It's bath time now. So you enforce the limit. She's not going to understand everything, but she's going to learn that she has your understanding. So she doesn't get everything she wants, but she gets something better. She gets you understanding and trying to help her feel better and enjoying the joy she does take in things. You know, by the time she gets in the bath, she's forgotten about outside and she's enjoying the bath, you know, and you're enjoying her. And that's what's great about a 22-month-old. In terms of the co-parenting, it's all supervised, her time with him. Great. So you say she cries the whole time. Is there this daycare she goes to? The only time she's at this daycare is when she sees him, or she's at this daycare?
Oh, no. Okay, so she's at daycare, like when I'm at school and things like that. She's great at the daycare. She's just really reserved around the other kids.
Okay.
And she doesn't talk unless all the other kids are asleep.
Well, there's something there that's a little anxious, that she's not so sure she's safe yet, but over time she will become, probably. And the more you use the preventive maintenance, the more you play, and you could play daycare with her, you could, and the more you just toss her around and get her laughing, the more it doesn't even matter that it's not about that specific thing. It's just the laughter is healing in itself, right? So using the 5 preventive maintenance will really help her process anything she's processing about daycare. But you're saying that when she sees her dad in those supervised visits, that's when she cries the whole time.
So from what I understand, there's very little insight to what's actually happening. I know what happened prior to like the last time we went to court, because his dad was involved, and now his dad has like come to testify like on my side. I don't want to say on my side, but because he knows that what his son is doing is not, it's maladaptive. And so now it's his mother is watching her, like the visitation at her farm, and they're like putting her on horses that she can't consent to. She's terrified of
You're saying
animals.
the supervisors are the grandparents. His parents are the supervisors. So they tell you she cries the whole time.
His dad did. Now his mom doesn't tell me anything, and she's got her own kind of
So
stuff.
this is hard. This is hard that your daughter is in a situation on a regular basis where she's crying all the time. And it might be that it's just that she feels not quite safe, and she's not, no one's responding to her the way she needs them to respond to her. And so she'll probably come home a wreck, and you're going to have to do a lot of encouraging of the laughter and the crying. And, the fact that she's going to need to nurse immediately is totally predictable and understandable. Anytime a toddler has been under stress, they're going to want to nurse immediately. And I wouldn't set limits on that at this point. So I think when you say how to co-parent, I think the more you can forge a good relationship of communication with the grandparents, the better. And maybe also with her dad, I don't know. And if that's not possible to do, then you're not co-parenting, right? You're just fixing the results that,
That's what I mean. Like, what do I do with her afterwards when she's just a complete mess? And how do I fix it? And she doesn't have words really yet for it. So
you give her you act like you're a therapeutic presence, where you allow all of the feelings. You might have to not allow some of the behavior, but you acknowledge and you give her words for it, even though she can't use the words. So if she's throws something or she goes to hit you, you say, "You seem so mad. You're having a hard time right now. I'm right here. No throwing." Right. So you're not letting her throw it or hit you or whatever. I'm going to hold that hitty hand. I don't want that hitty hand near my face. You are so upset right now. So you're acknowledging what I just used is probably even too many words, but she probably would understand that level, as long as that's the kind of thing she hears all the time. But you're not co-parenting. You're just doing your best to pick up the pieces.
how detrimental do you think that is to her and her future?
I think it depends on how bad what happens there is. I don't know that based on what you've told me, and I don't think it sounds like you know either. Yeah.
But regardless, thank you so much. This has been super helpful, and I just started with the membership, so I'll be here hopefully every
Great.
time.
I look forward to hearing how things unfold. Enjoy your daughter. Okay. So our next person is Jennifer. And then I'm wondering, at that point, Candace, maybe we should answer the pre-submitted questions that people were not able to come to the office hours because of time zones.
I think so.
Okay, great. So Jennifer, if you could unmute yourself.
Hi, thank you. I have been following you for some time and taking the class and all of that. So I've been applying all of the information to both myself and working with my son. And we've made a lot of progress. He's 9, he turned 9 in January. And he has such a big heart, and he's just like an incredible human being, and so loving. And my question is, I think he probably has a little bit of anxiety in general, just a combination of factors related to the pandemic, and then the pressure that I was probably putting on him without realizing it in the past. And he just wants to do everything right so that he doesn't upset me, or that I'm always proud of him, or he just wants to do the right thing. So I think he was unloading his emotional backpack at school and in other places instead of feeling safe at home to do that. So that's one of the things that's really changed in our relationship since going through this. I'm also a single mom, but my boyfriend lives with us now and has since September. So it's really created a positive male role model consistently in his life. He still sees his dad every other weekend. So he has that relationship there. But so there's like a lot of moving pieces. And I think as he started to learn how to regulate his own emotions and get through a lot of these challenges that he has had, he also, I think the anxiety comes out in different ways. So a lot of times I'll tell him, I love him, and he'll say, I love you more. And I'm like, well, my job, I feel like that's an indication that he is still trying to super please me, and I don't know how to navigate that, because it's like, it's almost the opposite end of the pendulum swinging, where before I felt like me telling him how much I love him and do a good job at school today because, that'll make mommy proud, and control your emotions. That put a lot of pressure on him to not do anything wrong. And then it would build up and come out all at once. And so now we're on the other side, where I just find myself challenged in those moments, because I'm like, we're so connected, and I want him to feel comfortable expressing his emotions and telling me how much he loves me, but I don't want him to feel like he needs to do everything in his ability to make me happy. I want him to turn inward and be proud of his own self and choices and accomplishments and be a kid, So I don't know if you have advice on how to navigate that.
Don't you wish that we had all known when our kids were born how to be perfect parents, and we didn't have to go
Yes.
back and undo all this stuff, why didn't we get the instructions for this unique child and our unique, way of parenting, so that we could know? So, what I'm going to say is that you already, Jennifer, have been doing a wonderful job of trying to recover from the pressure you were putting on him back before, but it had an effect. He's already 9, and it had an effect on him, and he has learned that to be worthy of your love, he has to be, check all the boxes, right? Maybe not be fully himself authentically, but maybe, no inconvenient feelings, no failures of any kind. And we all have inconvenient feelings. We all have failures of every kind, right? We all are not perfect. So he thought he couldn't be himself and be loved by you. And that's his takeaway. And that's what you're working with here, is him. When he says that, the dynamic between you is, he's like, well, I love you more. Do you think maybe part of what he's saying is, you don't actually love me as much as, he's proving that he loves you, right? He's proving that, don't go away. I love you. I love you. But also he might be saying, I'm not so sure how much you really do love me.
Mm-hmm.
We don't know that, but he might be.
Mm-hmm.
He might be saying, I'm not really worthy of you, of your love. I'm not worthy of your love. I've already learned that. Even, you know, we all have belief systems that govern our behavior, and those belief systems are the source of the thoughts we have and the behavior we exhibit, right? And we know one of his belief systems is I have to be perfect to be loved by my mom.
Mhm.
So you're trying really hard to address that belief system. You said, you know, you want him to feel safe to be who he is. And I think you have to be pretty explicit about it to heal it.
Mhm.
You know, when I was talking to the other mom earlier, and I said, you have to go back and heal that in these conversations. You have to say, that must have been so hard for you when I acted like that. We want to
Mhm.
open the door for him to say, yeah, I was afraid you were going to stop loving me.
Mhm.
Or I felt like if I didn't do well at school, you know, you were going to leave, whatever he'll say. So I think having those discussions where you bring it up and you make clear that any lack was never in your love for him. It was in your understanding of how to parent. You never lacked love for him. You always loved him more than anything in the world. And you also didn't know how to parent well, and you did your best and you messed up. And it must have been so hard for him. And hopefully he'll hear that and be willing to share some of the pain of it. And I think explicitly countering as well, as you said that you've already been doing, where you say, you know, you're more than enough the way, whatever the words were that you said that you use so that he feels like he could show you his feelings, whatever.
So because, you know, a lot of these conversations and even in some of the other questions, some of the parents, the moms have said that they use certain language to talk. The way that they communicate is similar to how I hear myself communicate with my son, which seems a little bit emotionally mature at times. Like, and I know that that's how I've always communicated with him. And sometimes I have these regrets, like, I've always prided myself in the fact that he communicates his emotions well. And I think it's because of that. But at the same time, I've questioned whether or not that was the right choice. Is that too advanced for him? Did I put him in this place that he felt like he had to be more emotionally mature than he should at the time? So in having these conversations where I'm now saying, look, I just didn't have the tools that I needed in that moment, and I'm trying to do better, and you have always been enough. When I get more into that, is it appropriate? What kind of language is appropriate for a 9-year-old?
I think all of the language we're using is appropriate, but I hear the subtext. I think the subtext of what you're asking is, you've always expected him to be mature and to intellectualize his emotions. And so the question is we want to open the door to him being able to tear up, to cry if he wants to. And
I let him do that. I definitely, and especially particularly after your course, I don't think I've ever been the parent to say, don't cry, but I didn't know how to accept that as a release or a need necessarily. It was like, okay, you're crying, we'll talk after you're done. But now I understand why he's doing it, and the fact that I've been able to empathize with him and make that clear to him that I'm recognizing that's a need in the moment. I think he has grown and the trust has grown.
Great. That's what you're after. You're after being able to really meet him heart to heart and have what's happening between you be emotionally resonant, right? So when you use the word mature, sometimes mature is code for don't actually express the emotions, just talk about them, as if they're intellectualized. And that's not what you're going for.
No. Okay.
It isn't so much the words you use, it's the tone, the feeling
Okay.
tone.
I just didn't want it to be too many words and not enough action, because sometimes
Well, are you also doing roughhousing with him, for instance?
Yes. Yeah.
Great. Okay. And do you snuggle with him?
Yeah. Yeah.
Great.
All the time.
Okay. So I think the actions are there. I think if you're snuggling and you're empathizing and you're roughhousing, I think the actions are there. I think it's more a question of, is there an invitation for him to actually be authentic emotionally with you? And also just to be able to share mistakes, talk about mistakes in your house. Oh, I made another mistake today. I did this. Or who else has a good mistake today? I mean, he has to feel that he's acceptable just the way he is, even with all those inconvenient emotions and all those mistakes.
That's a really good idea. So when he's telling me he loves me more, should I just let it go for now and just wait?
When he says, I love you more, you be playful about it.
Yeah.
You know the book, oh wow, it's To the Moon and Back. I love you more. Is it I love you more?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. Like, do you have that book? I mean, I would get a copy of it if you don't have it. And I would say, this reminds me of this book. Oh, let's read this book together. And he'll say, Mom, that's so silly. I'm 9. And you say, I know, but it's just like us. And you can say, see, they love each other so much. Right. Mm-hmm. And so, I mean, I would turn it into something that is light and is an expression of love between you, your desire to outlove each other, right? As opposed to him feeling not good enough, which, you know what I'm saying? We're not invalidating his love for you. His love for you is big, right? It's just that your love is also big. At the end of that book, as I recall, the kid falls asleep and the parent's like, yeah, well, actually my love's a little bigger. And, it goes all the way to Pluto or whatever it is. Yeah.
Great. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Welcome. I just want to say, I'm about to answer these 2 pre-submitted questions, which we do take a couple of questions every time for people who can't come to the office hours because of time zone issues usually. But I just want to say to everyone who's asked a question today, these have been really powerful questions. And it takes a lot of vulnerability to come and do this. And in every case, everybody who's asked a question has been working so hard and trying to be the best parent they could be. And that's not an easy thing to do. So you have my admiration and my love. And I'm going to see what this question is. This is about a kindergartner who is starting to be very defiant. And this has been about 4 months. So my first question is, 4 months, what happened 4 months ago? So, why is it in the last 4 months something has changed? So the person who asked this question, ask yourself what happened 4 months ago. And this is a kinship grand foster family. So I'm wondering if maybe the 6-year-old saw the parent. Are they seeing the parents regularly? Did something change in that visitation schedule? Has there been any change in the 4 months? There's a reason something begins to be very different 4 months, in the last 4 months. The examples that you're giving of the defiance, back talk on requests, whining that she's hungry when you pick her up at school, lying about whether she did her chores, being unwilling to wear her glasses in school, hiding them in the backpack, making sugary choices at lunch. These actually sound like pretty ordinary things that kids do. Kids who are embarrassed about their glasses, hide them in the backpack and don't wear them. Kids who feel like they don't get enough sweetness in their life, or they have not gotten enough sweetness in the past, will make a sugary choices, or just kids who love sugar will make a sugary choice, even though they've been told not to do that. Whining that they're hungry. Well, when you pick them up at school, they're always running a deficit. Sometimes they're actually physically hungry. Sometimes they just put it in those terms, but they're always running a deficit. Lying about their chores, lying of any kind, is usually an expression of an issue in the relationship where they don't feel safe to tell you. Of course, they don't want to do their chores. Nobody does. But most 6-year-olds don't go do chores by themselves. They need a lot of structure and support to do their chores. So always when you have a kid you're trying to get to meet your expectations, like do a chore, you would always ask yourself, what support can I give this kid to meet my expectations? What support do they need to do their chores? Maybe they need you to do the chore with it, if it's feeding the dog or watering the plants or whatever it is, maybe they need you to do that with them. So all of these things sound like pretty ordinary things, But what I'm hearing is that there's defiance and back talk, and that you're seeing these things as evidence that it's different, that 4 months ago things were better and that things have gotten worse. So I'm going to tell you what I think the solution is, regardless of what the source of it is. The solution is about connection. And so you know what the 5 preventive maintenance things are, since you did the Peaceful Parent Happy Kids online course. And those 5 things, if you do them daily without fail, will absolutely improve your relationship with your kid. And she will stop being so defiant. Now, maybe she's a really strong-willed kid, and you're going to have to work extra hard. We talked about that earlier in this call. And maybe she has, since it's a foster or grandparent situation, it sounds like, maybe she has some past trauma that she needs some support to work through. There's also that question. But when kids are defiant, it's not a behavior problem. It's a relationship problem. So I'm going to suggest that you use the tools from the course. If you feel like you need extra support, please weigh in the membership, the Success Path membership Facebook group, and ask for support. In fact, I've seen people weigh in both there and on the big group, the Peaceful Parent, the course big Facebook group. I've seen people weigh in, ask on both, and get different answers, and an avalanche of answers, so that you can have support from other parents who've handled defiance before. But my answer would always be with defiance to go back to connection. And when you do make a request, it's always an empathic limit, an empathic expectation, because no, everybody wants what they want. But when you give them the understanding, even as you say, we can't do that thing for you that you want, it's much easier for the 6-year-old to accept that they're not going to get what they want. So if you do what I've described, and you give this a really dedicated shot for a month or so, and you feel like you're not getting traction, please get some coaching from one of the parent coaches I've trained, because this is something that is very solvable. It may be that there's some trauma to deal with in the background, but it's still solvable. And so it may just be that you need a little extra support to break through, since things have started going off track 4 months ago. And our last question is a friendship and peer question. And this is about an 8-year-old who comes home and describes virtually every day something that goes wrong in class or in the playground. And it's not really bullying so much, but how do you talk about this with kids? Because, when should she be assertive? When should she just, tell the kid to stop doing whatever they're doing? When should she go tell the teacher? When should she go play with other kids? And I think this is the age when sometimes things go a little bit where groups of girls specifically can become mean. And I'm not saying that's what's happening in your daughter's class. It could be. So you want to have your antenna up to listen. But if it sounds to you like this is not actually bullying, and even if it does sound like it's bullying, you're going to want to help her, empower her in the moment to know what to say to those other kids. So if a kid's like, no, you can't, I'm thinking about an example I heard from a parent recently. You're not allowed to wear that to school. That she can just say to that kid who's, saying, it's not bullying exactly, but it's a little rude and mean and invasive. And she can just say, excuse me, you don't need to tell me that. You're not in charge, and walk away, right? I mean, she's allowed to stand up for herself, not in a mean way, not in an attacking way, just in an assertive, I'm in charge of what I wear way. And if it's meaner than that, it's like, I don't like you, I'm not going to be your friend. That's not bullying either. That's very standard, I'm sorry to say, for kids to treat each other in not very considerate ways. And she can just say, ouch. If she feels able to say, that hurts my feelings, I'm sorry about that, and walk away, she can do it. That might be way too vulnerable. She might just say, actually, she might say nothing. I'm realizing she could say ouch, but even that might be too vulnerable. She could just sort of shrug and walk away. And she'll probably be trying not to cry. but never show someone a bully. The rule is bullies are mean to you to get that reaction. And somebody being mean to you on the playground is expressing their feelings for some reason. Maybe they're upset because you just broke the rules of the game, or maybe they're just showing off for their friends by being mean to you. I think these are the kinds of things we tease out by talking to the child and listening to the child describe what happened. And then we play little games where we act it out with the puppets, and we say, we have one of the puppets say the mean thing, and we say to our kid, what should she answer? What should she say? And your kid will actually have an idea. And if not, you can say, how about this? And then you can act out what the kid who's on the receiving end of the mean comment can say. So you're taking it, she knows it's about her, but you're taking it one step removed. She's getting to observe it, and her thinking brain then is allowed to function. She's not like overwhelmed by the anxiety of the moment of being plunged back into the social scene at the playground. So, you know, we could talk about this for an hour about how you navigate these things and how you teach kids what to say, because they're going to be learning from now until, you know, a long time, how to navigate these situations. But your guiding rule is that you always listen, empathize, and empower. So you're never lecturing. You're simply saying, I wonder what you could do. You know, you're allowed to stand up for yourself. What could you say? What could you do? And teaching them sort of the basic rules of you're not with a bully. You're not wearing your heart on your sleeve. You're not crying. You're getting out of there as quickly as you can. And the more you can not be emotionally triggered, the better it is, because if the bully doesn't get any juice, they stop saying whatever they're saying to you. Bullies only continue to go after someone if they're getting that emotional juice. That's the reason they do what they're doing. So there's a whole article on bullying on the website. And I'm hoping that that's answered your questions. General friendship resources, I would say there are some books on the social intelligence pages. So there's a social intelligence for elementary schoolers page on the AHA Parenting website. Check out the books at the end of that article. And if anyone who's listening to this either live or later has any good books to recommend, I'd love to further develop those resources, because I think this is something that we always need. I think this is always something that hits parents sort of by surprise, is how these peer dynamics can really be a lot for kids to learn. You know, kids aren't born knowing how to navigate this stuff. Some kids do it more easily and naturally than others, but most kids need our support as they learn how to navigate peer stuff. So I hope that answers your question. And if not, hopefully you can ask again at office hours at some point, but use that and see where you get to hear more from your daughter about her experience of what's happening and to empower her. Okay. And that's our questions for today. I know we're a little over time. Thank you, everybody. I know this has been a long office hours, and I'm sorry we didn't get to every question, but there will be next month. And I look forward to seeing you then. So let's, everybody, as we're saying goodbye, I'm so looking forward to seeing the chat. I can't really follow the chat while we're doing this, but thank you again, everybody, for your comments in the chat and your support of each other. And I'd love it if you would unmute yourselves and say goodbye to each other. And you know what else you could say? How about, you're a great mom? I wonder if we have any dads. I haven't seen any dads' faces. Am I missing anybody? How about, you're a great parent? You're a great parent, everybody.
Thank you, everyone.
You're a great parent.
Great parent,
All
everyone.
these amazing parents.
You're a great parent. Thank you guys so
You're a
much.
wonderful parent. Thank you.
Thank you.
Great parent.
Love to you all.
Great parents.
Love to you all. See you next month. Bye-bye.
Bye.